and welcome back to Call Your Coven, practical advice for nonsensical times. And the times just keep getting more nonsensical. Yeah, I think when we
They sure
titled
do.
this, we felt it, but now here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Cool. Well, welcome to December, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we will be talking about the final month of the year, which is absolutely wild to me, December 2024. And of course, we'll be looking at the month through the lenses of numerology, astrology, and the tarot, and seeing what all of these magical modalities have to give us some insights and hopefully some wisdom and guidance about the month ahead. So, of course, we will be going over our own modalities. I am B, your resident. Oh, I didn't even have us introduce ourselves.
I was gonna chime in with that soon, but you got there.
Oh
We
my
got it.
gosh. Okay, I'm just like, everyone knows who we are at this point. Let's do it. I'm B. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm your resident numerologist.
I'm Jeanna. My pronouns are also she, her, and I am your resident astrologer.
And I'm Meg. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm the resident tarot reader.
Incredible. Thank you. So
We did it.
we did it. We will be going through our different modalities to let you know what is coming up with the energies in the month ahead. And then we will also be going through our buckets of finance, home, love, and health, of course, using these modalities as well. So I guess we just dive in with the numerology of December. Okay, what a month. When I did the numbers this month, it's kind of funny. I feel like we have a bit of a choose your own adventure type month ahead. We can look at this big picture energy because we do have some double digit numbers that come into play. And then we can also choose more of a boots on the ground, kind of slow and steady, the beginning of the cycle, and see how those numbers resonate with everyone at home and with us. December is the 12th month of the year. So of course we can look at the number 12. It is a cool number. Mathematically, it's one of just a few quote unquote perfect numbers. And it does denote a whole cycle. We obviously 12 months of the year, we have 12 members of a jury, we have 12 zodiac signs, so on and so forth. And then it reduces to the number 3. So December, we have 12 and we have 3. Then for December 2024, if we're adding 12 to 8, we get 11, which we spent a lot of time with last month in November. And of course, we'll continue to hang out with in December. So we have 11. And then of course, 11 reduces to 2. So the big picture energy is 11 and 12. And then the smaller boots on the ground energy is 2 and 3. So it's giving us kind of a beginning of the cycle, end of the cycle, little bit of both. We've talked about numbers in terms of the hero's journey made popular by Joseph Campbell before. And I know not everybody uses this storytelling structure, but I thought it was really interesting to look at these numbers through the steps of the hero's journey because there are 12 steps. So we have truly the beginning and truly the end of this overall personal journey kind of showing up for us in this collective cycle in December. Let's start with 2 and 3. So the second and the third steps of the hero's journey are the call to adventure. And then number 3 is the refusal of the call, which I find fascinating because the refusal and our disinterest in going on this journey is a part of every process before we actually make the decision to go. So we are still in the very beginning phases of a new cycle collectively. It started last month in November, in which we had one energy at the core. And I will talk about this more in a second, but spoiler alert, January is going to have us starting over again. So really, November and December are this little couplet of months at the end of a really, the 8th step being the ordeal. So we've been in this 8 collective, really intense year all year. And now we have this little couplet of opportunity to kind of start over, and we're dipping our toes in new pools and figuring out what we actually want to start on next year. So you can think of these 2 months, and since November has passed, you may already have inklings of what this might be. But November and December together are kind of like a testing ground for what we want to do, or the energies that are going to be in play when we move into January and into 2025. So you definitely want to reflect on November to see what kinds of seeds were planted, what ideas sparked, what began for you. Just do some reflecting on November at the beginning of December. So now that we've moved into 2 energy, we're connecting the dots of what started and where we want to go next. We're connecting to people. 2 is the number of the other. It's love and relationships and compassion. It's really deep in that heart energy and in the hands. So what do you love? What has value for you? And then also, what can you do? What can you make? Where do we go from here? And again, especially in the final month of an 8-year, which does rule desire and drive, following our hearts in December is going to be the best use of this energy, whether you are looking at 11 and 12 or 2 and 3. So answering questions like, what is important to you? What do you value? What are you connected to? What lights you up? And also, what keeps you soft? Because 2 is compassion, and the year has been really hard. The world is really hard. And so here at the end of it, it's like, what can keep you really soft and flexible and malleable and in your heart space, not hardened, like keeping a soft heart as we move into a 9 collective year, which is really about like the human family and humanity, and much, much more, which we'll keep for later. So that's 2, the call to adventure. So what are you being called into, and how does it connect to your heart and your hands, what you love and what you want to make? And then 3 energy might throw us a little bit of a curveball, of course, because 3 brings magic, but it also brings mess. So there could be some tension here. The refusal of the call might have us with the impulse to say no to things, no, thank you. And again, refusing the call is part of the journey. So that information, why you don't want to do something, why you're unwilling to engage, how it really feels to be in the thick of things, that's all really powerful information this month. And I think we should take note of and really honor our no's, or the ways in which we're called into action or called into relationship or community, and we're like, absolutely no, thank you. Really honor those no's, because I think this refusal energy is more about refining than actually saying no. So we're letting our no's lead us closer to our yeses. And again, we will have really big yes energy in January. So November and December are this pair of months where we are refining more of what we want to work on next year. Just really quickly about 11 and 12 being the final steps of the journey. So 2 and 3, we're being called and we're saying, I don't know that I'm the right hero to do this. And then obviously all those steps in between, we've gone on the journey. We get to 11 and 12, which are the resurrection and the return. So 11 really is the rebirth after the final death. So I really truly hope that this resurrection rebirth energy does find you in December, and that it comes with like a little bit of rejuvenation, right? Like our skin has finally shed. We can move into the part of the process where we're standing on new legs. Hopefully we're feeling a little alive again. We're able to access the 8 pieces of like hope and renewal in ways that feel really inspiring. That is honestly my hope for 11, at seeing 11 at the end of an 8-year, is that it doesn't mean everything's okay, and things will likely not be okay for a while for us, but it just means that we are able to touch in with the parts of ourselves that really are ready to move forward, that are still holding on to hope and renewal. And of course, then we have the return. So 12 is a full cycle. It's the end of the year and it should be treated as such, right? So check in with you earlier in the year. What were you hoping for in January? Not looking at it through the lens of like, what didn't you get done or how you weren't productive in the year. This is really like, what were you hoping for at the beginning of the year? And what are you hoping for at the end of the year? And is there overlap? What can you kind of learn about yourself and the whole cycle through the lens of what you were wishing for and hoping for at the beginning of 2024. And it's also the return, getting back home after a long journey and bringing the elixir back to your community. So rewards have absolutely been captured. We have, I'm sure everybody can look back at the year and find at least one or two things that they would call a reward, or these nuggets of wisdom that you're taking with you into the next year, or accomplishments or successes. What are you really proud of at the end of this year? Because that absolutely gets to be on the table, especially moving into a 9 year. And also what came up with return was like joyful reunion, coming back home. So holidays are a little bit of a choose your own adventure activity as well. They can be beautiful and very tricky. Whatever feels joyful to you in this part of the year, especially in coming together with loved ones, especially this year, might be a lot complicated, quite complicated for a lot of folks. So again, really centering joy and how can you access that? Okay, the last thing I will say is about January and December, but really looking ahead. So we're wrapping up this 8 collective year and we're heading into a 9 year. And 8 has been a fucking doozy and a half. I don't know anybody who has made it out of this year unscathed, right? And next year is going to really continue to provide collective shifts, culminations, endings, and then, yes, of course, new beginnings, because 9 will take us into another 1 year and we will literally start a collective cycle over again. 2025 is ending a 9 year cycle that started in 2017. So you can look at those grouping of 9 years to see kind of the larger picture. But January is a double 1 month. So January being the first month of the year, but then also when you add 1 to 9, you get 10, which reduces to 1. So we do have our little backpack friend hanging out with us again in January, but it's a double 1 month. So in December, wrap everything up now, right? We have this 12 ruling number. We have our 11 too, which is going to give us some higher perspective, but it really should be treated as the end of a cycle. Pay attention to what is ending for you. Find ways to honor that. Don't sleep on the nuggets of wisdom that you've gathered for yourself. Celebrate what there is to celebrate. Have a party for your accomplishments. Say what you need to say, express yourself, have those tough conversations, finish your projects, cut ties with that which no longer serves. We get these kind of messages a lot in spirituality, but I do think that December into January does really provide this present tense moment of like, make the changes that you want to make right now. There is no time like the present. Don't leave anything on the table, because next year we are wrapping things up as a collective or starting that process. But it's going to be a lot easier to honor what's dying on a grand scale if you already have a sense of purpose and direction on a personal level. So yeah, beautiful and tricky is the phrase that came through for December, especially from a numerological perspective.
Yeah, wow. That is so resonant with a lot of the astrology, especially like some things you were talking about with like the tension between big picture, boots on the ground, and really trying to find the hope in the nooks and crannies. For the astrology of December, there's a lot going on. So I will say I have a little bit more prepped for us than normal, but December is a time of renewal, rebirth, end of the year, lots of reflection automatically. And then here in the Northern Hemisphere, December begins with Sagittarius season and those final dying embers of the fall. And then we have the winter solstice, aka the beginning of Capricorn season, later in the month when we are really embracing resurrection and rebirth. There's a whole series of topics here on the relationship between Yule and Christian holidays and Saturnalia and all of those other things as being like resurrection holidays that we don't have to get into right now, but I think is relevant. Is definitely relevant to mention. But yeah, basically my TLDR for December was winter is coming. Buckle up, bitches. This is a big month. Like I said, we have not one but two new moons. We have the finale of the last Mercury retrograde of 2024 coming on the same day as the full moon this month. And we have a really, really, really major check in, both collectively and individually, between Jupiter and Saturn that I'm going to spend most of my time talking about. But first, get out your pen and paper. Let's take some notes. The first new moon in Sagittarius kicks us off in the wee hours of the morning, December 1st on the East Coast. It is that new moon is November 30th, like late at night if you are on the West Coast of the United States. And it is a truly energizing beginning to the month. Like Sagittarius new moons are often warm and playful, and since Sagittarius is the philosopher slash perpetual student of the zodiac, this is a great time to take a class. Get your book club together. If you want to start learning a new language or planning a trip or dusting off your books from college, like it's a good time to crack open some Audre Lorde or Bell Hooks. This is the moment. The thing to remember is that it will still be Mercury retrograde here at the top of the month, so give yourself some grace around deadlines, or if you rush to start something and then you forget the paperwork, like that's fine. If you're booking holiday travel at the top of the month, double, triple, quadruple check it. It is Mercury retrograde. This is the time of like accidentally scheduling your flight to fly out on the wrong day or to fly back like a day earlier than you were planning. So just like take your time. You can schedule stuff during Mercury retrograde. We have it every year, but just double, triple check, dot your I's, cross your T's. Mercury stations direct on December 15th, and that's also the same day as the full moon in Gemini. So the thing about this moon is that on the one hand, it's very playful. At the same time, it will be in a square with Neptune. So it's a great day for escapist reading with like a new romantasy or an immersive video game. I think it's a good day for romance if you are in like a long-term committed relationship. Neptune being involved in this kind of lunation can help people who are life partners bring the idealism back or bring some of the romance back, like it kind of helps to spice things up again. But I don't like that energy as much for new relationships or folks who were dating because it is very rose-colored glasses, very like being more susceptible to the ideal of a person rather than seeing them for who they actually are. If you're ending the year single, we are being intentional about the lessons we've learned. Use discernment is the TLDR there. And then the second and final new moon of the month is in Capricorn on December 30th. I love a Capricorn lunation for world building, which we're going to talk about more in a sec, and for making really concrete plans, getting realistic about your abilities and expectations, and committing to the follow through. The timing of this is also perfect this year because it comes at the very tail end of the year when so many people are looking to change things, introduce new things, wrap up cycles, make resolutions, all that good stuff. But the thing that I want to spend a bit of time talking about here is a different astrological event happening this month outside of the zodiacal season, major retrograde, and the lunations. And I want to set the stage for you as the listener as to where I am, like where we are right now. At the time of this recording, which is mid-November, at least for me personally, it feels a little bleak here in the United States, not gonna lie. Hope is a precious resource that at the moment feels inconsistently available. I'm definitely being reminded of how much it's something that we intentionally create, cultivate, and steward in our lives. And to that end, I'm also trying to remember that our hope is in community, it is in each other, it is not in systems. Institutions won't save us. This is a lesson of Jupiter and Saturn. So, the current cycle between Jupiter, where we find our hope, and Saturn, where we get reality checked, began on the winter solstice in December 2020 with a conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius. This was called the Great Conjunction. If you were following astrology at that time, if you were involved in astrology at that time, you remember this. Much was made of it because it's a big deal. Jupiter and Saturn are like the two big dogs in the sky, traditionally speaking. And when they meet up every 20 years or so, it's both an initiation and an invitation to build a new world. To world build. And that great conjunction came when we were still deep in the throes of that first year of COVID. This was pre vaccine. It felt a little ironic that the Great Conjunction was happening in a communicative social air sign for the first time in the last 200 years when we were so profoundly socially isolated. But as an astrologer, that also felt hopeful. Like, that it was a promise that we as a society were going to be initiating new ways of understanding each other, new ways of connecting with each other, finding new ways to distribute information, to organize. And here in the US, the Great Conjunction also happened around the time that Biden was confirmed to have won the presidential election, unseating then President Trump. And that's important. Remember that. The thing about astrological cycles is that we don't just say, oh, the cycle began, and then years later say, oh, it ended. Like, there are check in points throughout that process. And to my mind, you can think of it kind of like hands on a clock. So let's say the Great Conjunction was at 12 at the, noon, 12 a.m. marker. And now, 4 years later, we are at the 3 o'clock marker. This is also called an opening square. So in four-ish more years, we'll be at 6, which would be the opposition. You get the idea. And these 90-degree increments represent both major turning points and major check-ins. It's like, okay, we started world building. What have we done with it? What do we want to change? What do we want to expand on? What do we like less? And so this fall was our first opportunity to check in post Great Conjunction. These Jupiter Saturn moments are where we confront our hopes and fears on a collective level, where we witness our growth edges and our restrictions, where our desire for expansion comes up against our need to hunker down and consolidate. Jupiter encourages us to have hope. Saturn encourages us to be realistic. That is a fine tightrope to walk. It's very much long-term planning, very much put your phone down, think about the long game, don't get emotionally flooded by your algorithm. And this has already started to happen this year. So the first time Jupiter and Saturn hit that 3 o'clock hand, that first opening square, was August 19th, which folks in the US will recall was the week of the DNC, or the Democratic National Convention. And we all know that that week, Kamala Harris was officially nominated as the Democratic candidate. And because Jupiter is now retrograde, Jupiter is returning to meet Saturn back at that like little 3 o'clock hand spot. And so our second check in with this phase of the Jupiter Saturn story comes December 24th, a religiously significant day for many people. And listen, like I said, we are recording this episode mid November. We are not even 2 weeks post election right now. We are in many ways still reeling. And I don't know what that week is going to bring. Like, I'm a Capricorn, I'm a child of Saturn. I am really grounding myself in realism. Like, let's deal with what we've got. Like, let's make plans accordingly. Like, I'm not, you know, hoping for a shooting star here. But again, I do know that the 2020 election went for Biden around the Great Conjunction, and Kamala was confirmed as the candidate a few months ago, the first time this happened. And then, so we're going to have this moment December 24th, whatever that brings. And there will be the third and final check in of this phase of the story, June 15th, 2025. And so, just giving you that information, not predicting how it's going to go, but just offering that that's a very significant week of the year. And it feels even more significant now, knowing what we know at this point in this month. My practical advice for this month, as I wrap up here and then hand it over to my beautiful fiance, as we are anticipating some things that are yet to shake out, is primarily put down your phone. Put down your phone, mute people who put you into a spiral. Remember that a main function of propaganda is to flood you with so much that it normalizes and desensitizes you to what's going on. It's not reasonable to be connected to technology 24/7. It's not activism to just be watching or reading things on your phone and not doing that boots on the ground stuff in your local community with your people. And on a different note from the politics, this is holiday season in many parts of the world, and that can bring up a lot of complicated feelings. Lean into the metaphorical warmth of the Sagittarius bonfire, gather your people together, really focus on celebrating what is good and hopeful about this life with them. A gratitude or blessing practice would be really good medicine this month that I will be taking my own advice on. And that's the astrology.
Damn. Okay. Well, there's a lot that is in the tarot that is going to, as ever, be reflected in what both of y'all have shared. But ending, Gina, on that note of like celebration feels extremely appropriate given the first card that I pulled for us for December. If you are just joining us somehow, if this is your first forecast, just to let you know, the theme card, which is I pulled 3 cards for all of us for the month, and the theme card is really about the vibes. This is general, practical thoughts and insights, the vibe, the energy. Something just to keep in mind for all of us as we move into this new month. It's not predictive. This is not a guarantee of something that is absolutely going to happen to every single person. Instead, it's really just about giving you a sense of what you can start to anticipate and be on the lookout for as we move through the month, as well as some general advice to keep in mind if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed or thrown off your game. And a lot of people are thrown off their game right now. So it's my sincere hope that us offering these kinds of practical bits of advice really helps give you some additional support this month. So our theme card for everybody, the general vibe, is the Four of Wands. Talk about celebration. You absolutely love to see it. The Four of Wands, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition, is usually interpreted as a card of literal celebration, of joy, of hitting like the first major milestone in a particular journey, which does feel very appropriate for moving into December and holiday season. A lot of people are looking for things to celebrate, reflecting on the year that we've just moved through, and starting to anticipate what might be around the next corner. But we are not in a normal year, right? We are in fascism. We are looking at an incoming administration that a lot of people are deeply, correctly, I think, afraid of. A lot of people are making plans about how to keep themselves safe in the future. And a lot of us are thinking critically about how we can show up and take action as things continue to shift and as we are facing our fears in really realistic and practical ways. And so it would be irresponsible of me, really, not to talk about the fact that the Four of Wands, when we pull out of a Rider-Waite-Smith tradition and instead look at the Marseille tradition and consider the numerology and the elements, this is really about a lot of other things besides just celebration. This can also be about the fact that vision requires passion to develop, but also requires control to sustain. The number 4 is this energy of grounding and protection, right? Of safeguarding. I think sometimes it's easy to think about 4, and 4 can be an uncomfy number for a lot of us, but 4 can think about, restriction and boundaries, rules and systems and things that are meant to contain. But it's also about protection and safeguarding. It's about long-term planning. It's about thinking about legacy, and it's about thinking about the things that we're going to put in place to ensure that we can keep doing the things that matter to us. Because remember that Wands is the energy of fire, right? We are right now, when you're watching this, we're going to be still probably in Sagittarius season, in that season of mutable, flexible, adaptable fire, and really thinking about what we care about, what propels us forward, what is our desire, what is our momentum, what is the thing that gets us out of bed in the morning. Not the things we have to do, but the things that we would do even if we weren't making money because of them or no one was telling us to do it. The things we find ourselves naturally gravitating towards, the things that we can't help but be drawn to and excited about. That is your Wands shit. That is your fire shit. And so when you're thinking about the Four of Wands as a vibe for this month, I want you to think about paying attention to the creative practices that require self-discipline to make realities. and to really think about how you protect your fire and how you establish systems to continue protecting that fire in the future. This also just feels like a vibe of paying attention to the push-pull of controlled growth and what that looks like. Where can you let your passions grow really wild and free? And where might some pruning be necessary, right, for some more long-term healthy growth? Where is restriction actually going to help something flourish? I pulled these cards from the brand new Magic Pantry Tarot by Cedar McLeod, which I'm absolutely obsessed with, highly recommend. Every card in the deck is associated with an ingredient of some kind or a meal of some kind. And the Four of Wands is associated with the herb of basil, which I happen to be obsessed with. I literally have a basil tattoo on my forearm. Basil is a plant that I work with really closely and really love. And basil in particular, I'm not going to talk about all of the plants on these cards, but I have to talk about basil for just a second because the amazing Maeg Keane has been writing a lot about basil over the last few years and talks about its connections to Scorpio and Mars. And as Meg writes, an energy of awakening to the moment, which just feels relentlessly relevant right now. Awakening to the moment, paying attention to what fires you up, and really thinking about how you're going to protect those things so that you can keep taking action on them throughout the month, as well as how that's going to pave the way for everything you're going to do in the coming years. So we'll include links to both the deck as well as Meg's work in the show notes. Okay, enough on that. Really, I guess I have a couple other questions that I can share. How can you organize your magic into something truly sustainable? That was the other one I wanted to ask before we move on. So then I always pull a truth card and a dare card. Truth is our kind of internal challenge, something to reflect on, a hard, messy question to ask yourself and really sit with this month, a place that you might have an uncomfortable perception that needs to be examined a little bit. And our truth card for the month is the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands feels deeply, again, connected, like pointing us right back, not only to everything B you were talking about with two as a general energy, but also we're still in that Wands fiery, like, what are we planning? What are we plotting? What are we protecting? What are we choosing kind of vibe? If four is fully building out the foundations and the systems for our long-term efforts that are motivated by the things that we care about, right? Protecting and preserving what deeply matters to us, then two is going to help us make an authentic choice that actually enables and supports that work. Two is always kind of about balance and duality. And in combination with wands and the element of fire, it kind of makes me think about the calm before the storm. I hate to say it. That's kind of the energy here, which feels correct. But also the planning that is necessary for a process to really succeed. This is like the period of checking in with the self and saying, okay, the opportunity that I've dreamed of is before me. Is this something I actually want to do? Is this something I can realistically commit to? And so your uncomfy questions for the month for truth is really, what are you willing to show up for? What are you deeply passionate about? And what is going to truly sustain that passion? What is worthy of your attention and your effort? And what are you also simultaneously capable of seeing through to the finish line? We all care about a lot of things, but we can't necessarily show up in our fullness with all of our energy and resources for everything we care about. And as we move into this next year, and I'm sure we will continue talking about this forever, you have to pick and choose the places that you can reasonably commit to and show up in your fullness instead of trying to do everything at the same time and either burning out or not finishing anything, right? And so I think this really is an energy of being hyper authentic with yourself, being really truthful and honest with yourself about what you can reasonably accomplish and maintain in a really great and empowered way. The last card I pulled for our dare card, which is really a risk to take. It's something funky to try that's going to go outward. It's a place to take a bit of a chance or to try something exciting or new or different, an area to maybe push yourself a little bit. And I actually pulled a major for this card. So we got the Lovers, which is the sweeteners in this deck, which is so cute. But anyway, because of its name, I'm obligated to say this. Because of its name, the Lovers first gets associated with like relationships and love and sex and partnerships. So I'm just going to say that because this is our dare card, if there's someone you're into or that you've been seeing, maybe this is a time to shoot your shot. Just saying. Lean into the sweetness. If that's you, there you go. but in a much broader sense, in something that's actually going to apply to most of us. The Lovers really is a card of community and responsibility. It's care and reciprocity and showing the fuck up. And so our dare for this month is both simple and not at all simple, right? Make the values aligned choice. Make the values aligned choice. Don't just pick the easy thing. Don't just pick the path of least resistance. Don't just do the thing that protects your peace and leaves other people out in the cold or ensures that you're not engaging with anything that's hard. Instead, I dare you to pick the thing you want to pick and walk the path you want to walk and chase the thing you want to chase, but not to do it by yourself. Okay. Be brave enough to be honest with yourself and grab the people that you trust to cheer you on and get going. Jeanna said earlier, our hope is in community. I had to write it down when you said it, babe, because we don't have to feel hopeful necessarily to take action. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. We have to grieve. And hope is important, but you're not going to wake up feeling 100% hopeful every single day. You still need to have a sense of the actions and the things that you care about, and also have people around you so that even on days when you don't wake up feeling hopeful, you can still take action, because action helps make space for that hope to keep growing. So all three of these cards, before I open it up and we can all talk about all of this, all three of these cards really ask us to be authentic with what we're investing in, what we're working towards, what we believe in, and what we're actually energized by. It just feels like a potent reminder overall for December to be real with ourselves about our capacity and our limits, as well as where we're genuinely engaged and where we're just going through the motions or making the choice that seems safe. So, what do y'all think?
I think so many things. My brain has been buzzing.
Huh?
I've been
Yeah.
taking notes furiously, and I'm like, where do we even start?
Hmm.
Okay. Well,
I know
I
you.
do have a starting place
Oh,
just to
excellent.
get it
Excellent.
just to get it out of the way. I know obviously not everyone is going to want to talk about the nitty gritties of politics or the
Yes.
incoming administration, but I do think that there's something really interesting happening with this Jupiter Saturn dates that I just want to talk
Mhm.
about really quickly. And then
Mm.
we don't have to talk about Trump anymore. Um,
We're going to be talking about him so much, whether we want to be or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think actually that we can all take our experiences from the first administration and really learn like what was healthy for us and what was not healthy for us in terms of
Mhm.
Mm.
the information that we take in the second term. I just think, yeah, we can all pay a little less attention to him in the long run, and that might actually do all of us some good. But okay, so Jeanna, you talked about this great conjunction happening in December of 2020, and then with Kamala being the candidate with this opening square, and now this
Mhm.
new date, and then the third date being June 15th.
Yeah.
So if you listen to our election forecast, then you know that I already mentioned this, but if you didn't because you couldn't take it in at that time, totally, totally fine. The one thing we did have someone ask, I couldn't listen to it, but what is the takeaway? And one numerological pattern that I think is really important to keep in mind is that 2017, which was the first year of this collective cycle, was Trump's first term. It started in 2017. And so now we are starting the last year of this cycle, the 9 year, with Trump's second term. So I didn't speak to it much before because I was hoping for a different outcome. But there was a part of me that really did feel like we were not going to get out of the story that we started telling in 2017 until we were able to start a new story, which will happen in 2026. So we are still very much mired in the story that we've been playing out since 2017. But I also talked about how we calculate our own yearly cycles and how there's a theory that it really gets set in motion on your birthday. And so you can track your yearly cycles birthday to birthday. And there are some complications with this, especially if you have a birthday at the beginning or end of the year. Then it's like, how do you calculate that? Are you only in the year for 3 weeks? Like it just gets kind of messy. But I had pointed out that Trump's birthday is June 14th, and June 14th of 2016 would have been the start of his 1 year, like a new personal cycle for him. And that the following day, on June 15th, 2016, was the day that he announced his candidacy. And I thought that was a really intense 1 year jump. So now you're saying that on June 15th of
Mhm.
next year, then we're going to see another Jupiter Saturn square. And that will be the day that Trump's like next cycle shifts. And I just like my brain is buzzing.
That is very loud. When you started talking, B, I was like, wait, oh my God, isn't his birthday? Because I just try to keep his chart out of my head. But like, yeah, his birthday sure is like the day before that last. And that'll be the third and final, like Jupiter Saturn square of this opening, opening test, if you will. I don't quite have, I think, a solid interpretation I want to commit to with that, but it's very, very loud, the extent to which, and this is one of those things, right? Like where it's like the astrology of one really prominent public person becomes profoundly representative of, almost like they're a cipher for the collective like journey that's happening. It's not
Yeah, I
really.
don't have any predictions or thoughts about that either. It was more just like when you said that, I was like, the patterns are patterning.
The patterns are
Mhm.
patterning. And I think the thing for me, and I know that we said we don't want to get too hard into like election stuff, especially since so much just hasn't played out yet, but it is really notable to me that like this upcoming square that we're having on the 24th is around the time we had that initial great conjunction where because it took so long for results to get resulted the first time, which I think is what a lot of us were expecting this
Yeah.
time around.
Yep.
And like so the timing is also very congruent with how that played out in 2020. So there's just a lot to keep our eyes on here for sure. Do we want to talk about something else?
I don't even know what to say after that.
Like, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, 2016 was a 9 year too. It was the last 9 collective year, right? So yeah, there's just like a lot. There's just a
Yeah.
lot.
I think something actually what I will pick up with here that can relate to politics, but also doesn't have to. But also, like I said, we're like literally less than 2 weeks post election right now. Like the world is having a time. But B, we're talking about like 11 and 12 as and like November and December as these months to like wrap shit up in.
Mhm.
And then that we're starting like new thing, in January. And I will say, as someone who is planning a wedding right now, and like a lot, and I have a lot of like those things that have sort of last minute cropped up as like, you know, we're getting married early next year. We're gonna go on a honeymoon. Like, we're trying to get a lot of new things in before the inauguration, as it were. Yeah, I wondered if you, that's not really a question, but I wondered if you had some thoughts on those of us who are trying to do really big things here at the end of the year
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
those numbers.
totally.
Did that make sense?
Yes, of course. And I
Okay, okay.
think doing really big things is super supported. We have 11 and
Mhm.
12, which are in terms of cycles, those are the biggest numbers that we're going to see. And, normally when we look at yearly cycles or monthly cycles, we want to stay in those building block numbers of 1 through 9, which
Yeah.
is why, we have 2 and 3. But of
Mhm.
course, it would be silly to not look at 11 and 12 as like big wrap up energy.
Mm,
And especially we're in an 8 collective year, and eights can be like pushing energy. It can be really, it's drive, it's ambition, but it's also kind of like shoving something over the finish line. And then in 9, it gets a little like, whoa, we got, we're almost like dizzy from all the pushing we did. And we just have to like take a breath before we get to the finish line kind of thing. But I think 8, it's the final fight. So yeah, there's a lot of energy here in December that really does support those final pushes or trying to make really big things happen. I do think that 3 energy is the magic number,
mhm,
so we might find a lot of really inherently satisfying work to be done
Mhm.
here, especially if you can lean more into the magical and the hope filled sides of like why you're fighting, what it is that you're working towards. Why is this so important for you to have this big thing come to fruition or culmination? And I also just, that tension that is obviously going to be a part of the month as well. I don't think it necessarily means that your efforts will not be fruitful, but I
Mm.
do think that it's just remember to keep in mind, we are in a Mercury retrograde. There are these bigger things happening. It is the holiday season. So just be realistic and mindful of what is not possible to get done. Like we don't want to start January by berating ourselves with what didn't
Mm.
get done in December, Um, so just keeping our boots on the ground. 11 would be like, we can do everything. And 2 is like, no, we can do this or that.
Which
Like,
is it's
Mhm,
so funny
mhm.
to hear you talking about that because it's like that's also the Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is like, let's go. Let's dream so big. And Saturn is like, but what's your budget? But
Mhm.
what's like, but this. And I felt like with Meg, like the lovers is also one of those cards that like swings. It's like a lot of what we're saying is like swinging between. Like, how do we
Mhm.
find comfort or ease or acceptance of like swinging between those two sometimes extreme feeling places. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the opposite of that can be true for December as well, because our
Mm.
core numbers are 11 too. So 11 would actually be like, maybe we have to yield to reality, but then 12 and 3 would be like, but we can sprinkle pixie dust on it and like get it done. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity here and energy to work with this month. And it does feel really supportive as long as we
Mhm.
can just be mindful of what's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping everything in balance. Like, okay, what do I want? And then what part of this is possible? Or like, what do I see for the future and who's gonna help me get there so that I'm not trying to do it by myself? Mhm.
Yes, that's huge.
Yeah. Should we do our buckets?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. So the first bucket that we are going to look at is finance, a great place to start. And I think this is kind of a little bit of a no-brainer, but the numerology definitely supports that we need to be mindful of our money this holiday season. So the holiday season, just in general, can lead to overspending, whether that's buying gifts for other people or taking advantage of sales for yourself. You want to treat yourself to something. And even if it's with the best intentions, we don't want to put ourselves in a place where we are tight or don't have what we need because we've overspent or overextended. So when it comes to gift giving, 2 is our core number of the month and 2 rules the hands. So think about what you could make. First and foremost, what kind of DIY gift could you make? Is this something where instead of going and buying a bottle of wine, you can make a batch of cookies, for the party, just thinking specifically holiday related? Or it can mean choosing a few people to buy gifts for, or in your community, doing like a secret Santa where you're only responsible for one person instead of the whole group. And then also, especially those in 6, 8, or 9 personal months, really interrogate the reasons why you're giving gifts or why you're spending money this season. And really think about ways in which you might be giving out of obligation or guilt or some kind of responsibility that just isn't there. And not saying that's going to be easy to navigate, but just you want to be really clear on like why you are spending in December.
Yeah, the astrology also supports the kind of common sense advice that we'd give at this time of year, but it's also very literal. With Mercury retrograde happening the first half of the month, this is not the time to be spending on things or to be investing in things that are out of your ordinary. Like, I don't want to say, like, don't spend money at all, because, which is also like not what we're saying here, because, life is life. Mercury is retrograde 3 times a year. You gotta buy groceries, you gotta, occasionally treat yourself to something nice. Like those are just normal things. But when we have the retrograde, it really highlights like how much we need to kind of, like B was saying, interrogate and cut out the extremes. Given how many billionaires are offloading stock right now, I find this very funny because we'll see how this impacts like stock market kind of things. But yeah, I would not advise major moves, investing, offloading, anything else. The other piece of the Mercury retrograde conversation that I would specifically say is to be mindful of December 4th through 6th, because on December 4th, Mercury is square Jupiter, which can be very big. I overspent. Like, oops, treat yourself, like that kind of thing. But then on the 6th, Mercury is square Saturn, which is where the bill comes due, and we have consequences. So just like, especially those few days, avoid leaving things in your shopping, like don't do the window shopping online just for fun where you're going to be getting your cart reminders. Like leave that stuff at the door. Last piece that I will say is that the second half of December, even though Mercury is direct, we have a waning moon, which I also do not love for investments, real estate purchases, things like that. December 30th is when things start to kick back to normal. Be conservative with your money this month, spend it in January.
Love it. Okay. For the tarot, I'm actually going to mix it up. And this time I pulled a new card for each of our buckets rather than just using the, ones that we did for the overall. I wanted to get a little bit more specific for y'all. So for finance, I pulled the Ten of Swords. So the Ten of Swords is a card that pretty much nobody ever wants to see. I'm going to be real with you. But it doesn't have to be the end of the world. What it actually just really represents is that we're at the end of a cycle and we're starting to anticipate the next one. Remember, this is our little buddy with a backpack, right? So instead of acting like you're brand new to money and you're taking big swings or trying something new that you've never done before, like a huge investment or, starting some new financial journey, instead just pay attention to what feels like liminal and sort of squishy, right? Being in that transitional space between cycles can be really satisfying. It could feel like something is coming to a joyful close, but it can also be really draining and can mean that we don't have as much discernment to like offer to part of our life, especially when it comes to something that can be really tender like finances. So just chiming in here, be gentle with yourself. Don't rush into any major decisions and move slowly. And if your brain starts being mean to you about money or you start feeling some kind of way, put the credit card down and find something nice you can do to tend to your body. If you feel a sense of urgency around something, I have to buy this right now. This thing is on sale and I've been wanting it and it's going to go off sale in 24 hours or something. Take a breath, interrogate if you actually need it, pay attention to where that feeling of urgency is coming from, if it's external or internal. And yeah, just take a breath and put the card down. You're probably okay. So let yourself move through that cycle instead of allowing other things to really ramp you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think putting the phone down was like a huge thing that Jeanna was like, put the phone down. And now you're like, put the credit card down.
Card down.
Put it
Yeah.
down.
We're being
Put it down.
intentional this month.
Yeah.
Like we're being intentional. We're not on autopilot and we're also not fear reacting. Like I feel like that's just the overwhelming message.
Yeah, for
I know
everything.
I know we're trying to not talk too much about politics, even though like we of course are actually talking about politics, but like so much of my feed right now is like, here's everything you need to buy before the inauguration. Here's everything you need to buy before the tariffs hit. And like, there is so much like fear and anxiety around that. And some of it might make sense, but like, please use discernment. You don't have to buy a new house right now if you don't need one. You don't have to buy a new car right now if you don't need one, like it's got to be done thoughtfully instead of in a reactive panic sort of way.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the perfect segue into what I have for home. No, it truly is. When I thought about home for this month, I literally wrote feels cozy and doing what we can with what we already have are the vibes of the month. Like 11 and 12, and also, it's the return homes. It does really have like big cozy vibes and coming home and feeling safe and like you have a soft place to land. So if you feel like you need to take action this month in home, 2 and 3 support going through your junk drawers, cleaning out your closets, seeing what you can whip up with whatever is in the pantry. Like it's really about taking stock and knowing what you already have, and then being surprised by the abundance that already surrounds you. And again, if you have to go new, new doesn't always mean expensive or even brand new off the shelf, right? So we talked a lot about thrifting or shopping secondhand in November, and November and December are these couplets. So we're taking that into December with us as well. You know, what are the next steps to feeling at home in your space? For folks that are having more practical personal months, so these numbers are 1, 4, and 7, home might mean family for you and like practically, you know, where do you live? Who is in your home? What is going on? And with this 3 energy speaking to us this month might be a month of tough conversations or expressing yourself, especially if you normally hold back. And it also could mean listening when others express themselves. So, for everyone this month, but especially those practical people, be mindful of messy conflict. Take breaks if you have to. If you are somebody who is very practical and not emotional, you might have to sit in some emotions this month and it might not feel great, but you will be okay. Everyone will be okay.
Ugh, that is really helpful to hear, I will say, as someone who on my long to-do list literally has clean out closets in December. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool, noted. I will do that. I will wait till December and then I will do it then. Yeah, so for the astrology of home, generally I just focus on particular rising signs that are having lunations in their house or zone of home and family in their birth chart. But what I will also offer this month is that the Venus Pluto conjunction comes on December 7th, and this can bring up a lot of power dynamics, especially with women, given that it's holiday season. That just feels like a very loud, if you're fighting with your mother or an older like woman relative or what have you, like B gave really great practical advice, and that's just maybe a day to be mindful of not sending a spicy text message. For the lunations, Virgo risings, Pisces risings, Libra risings, you are all having your home and family and heritage like lit up this month. So, Virgo risings have the new moon in Sagittarius on December 1st, highlighting this area for them. Something is starting around home and family and relationships, and maybe like a journey with ancestry, DNA stuff, but it might be a little rocky to get off the ground. Mercury retrograde is co present with this moon, so just be generous with yourself and also with others if communication gets muddled or if things are late in the meantime with whatever it is y'all are trying to get started. Pisces risings. You have the full moon on December 15th. And so, again, home, family, heritage, parents, grandparents, all of that. Be mindful of idealizing something about home or family too much, especially going into the holidays. Like, I think this is a really easy time for a lot of folks to be susceptible to this year will be different. This year, like, we'll do this. This year, we won't do this. This is a period, especially for Pisces risings, to just reality check yourself. Remember what Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. This is just a reality check-in, especially if you're like traveling or hosting or doing otherwise like big swings with people you care about. Last but not least, Libra risings. You have the new moon in Capricorn on December 30th, hitting your house of home and family. This is a great time for initiating or making plans around very like physical, tangible home things. I mean, it really dovetails with what B said around like cleaning out your closets, like cleaning out your garage. If you're remodeling, if you're having like you want to start a remodel of a room, you want to paint your bedroom a different color, you're looking at moving. Maybe you just need to put up a gallery wall. Like, this is a really great lunation for you to do that. It's also going to be your first Capricorn lunation without Pluto in 15 years. So I hope that you get to use that like structure oriented energy, feeling pretty free of the power dynamic stuff that you've had to work through in that area of life for a really long time now.
Congratulations to Libra risings everywhere. So for home, I pulled temperance. So it feels very apt with what y'all have been saying already. Really just thinking about balance as the name of the game, especially if you've been moving through major changes, either in your physical home, whether you physically literally moved to a new location or finished up a renovation, or if you've been navigating some major change or conflict with the people who are in the house with you, right? Or people who you consider your home. I feel like I don't want to repeat too much here, but I do want to say that I think of temperance because it's a 5 card, it's 14. And what I always think of temperance as an opportunity for an internal breakthrough or an opportunity to really think about whatever internal complications or contradictions you might be navigating. So, for everyone, I just want to say when it comes to home, not to be afraid to make space for conflict and friction, for authenticity, for honesty, for allowing something to rub up against each other so that there can be movement on the other side. I think when it comes to home, whether it's like decorating something or navigating family, especially this month, there is power in being honest and real about what's coming up and to move through it together intentionally instead of just trying to hide from it or avoid it. So,
Okay.
chill.
All right. Well, our love vibes. So beautiful but tricky was my phrase for December. And so that's really going to find us here in the sector of love, especially for folks in personal 5 months. So I'm saying that at the top so that you can listen closely to the whole thing. But this is the same, energy for everyone. So if you find yourself going on first dates or having date nights in December, try and switch it up. Maybe plan a new activity, try to capitalize on the magic of the season. This could be like going to see the Christmas tree, even if you don't have any Christmas traditions, putting yourself in places where people are feeling joyful and magical and yeah, capitalizing on that. But of course, this month has really big conflict vibes for love when I looked into it. So it very much has the energy, and this is real, this happened to me in my own life, and this is what came through, of buying a promise ring for Christmas and then breaking up before you can get it sized.
Wow.
You can't just do a lore drop in the middle of our episode and be like, by the way, I need
I
the
did it.
details on this.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow, we're going to talk after this.
my first. Oh, I'll tell everyone. It was like my first male boyfriend. Yeah. We had a really hard November. In December, he was like, "I'm going to get you this ring for Christmas." It's obviously not an engagement, but like we're going to work on things. And then it had to get sized, and literally between Christmas and New Year's, we broke up, and we were already broken up by the time we had to go pick up the ring together. And I was like, "Do you want to just return this?" And he was like, "No, it's fine. You can have it." And I was like, "Well, why would I?" The long thing.
Anyway, B is not straight.
I'm not. Yeah, that was
Breaking news.
why I couldn't have the ring. No,
Be true to yourself is the moral of the story.
I mean, but that
Wow.
was so funny for me when I was looking at the thinking about love. Like that just came in so hard. Was like emotions are really high in December for a plethora of reasons, but 2 is like this tender emotional energy, but it has us promising too much too quickly. So it really does have like the energy of trying to put a band-aid on a bullet wound and then realizing like, oh, that's not going to be helpful. So think about that. I mean, in a practical sense, I guess like if you are wanting to break up, don't make new promises. But I think opportunities for miscommunication are also all over the place this month with that 3 energy. So really in terms of love and numerology in December, we're navigating our own emotions and trying to let our own waves crash as much as possible before making decisions. And we are just being as practical as possible as an antidote to being like too dramatic or too in your head. Again, especially for personal 5 months, but yeah, for everyone. So, and that's that on the lore.
Amazing. Amazing, B. Oh my God. No, it also, what you said also makes me think of the number of queer folks getting engaged and rushing to the altar right now. And obviously I've said Meg and I are going to be getting married pre-inauguration, but we've been talking about getting married for 2 years. You know, like
Longer.
Meg's had longer, like Meg's had the ring for or you had the rings for like more than 6 months.
So long.
This is like
So many plans fell through.
this is a natural outgrowth. Like I so keenly remember in 2016 when I was in a different long-term partnership, and like thank goodness we like so much love for her, but thank goodness we didn't get married. We talked about it very briefly. A lot of our friends rushed to the altar. A lot of those people got divorced. So like yes, it's a very scary time politically, but this is also maybe not the time to like impulse marry someone. Astrology wise, I'm going to give you one date to be mindful of and one date to go out on a date night for. And the date to be mindful of, I already mentioned earlier, it's December 7th, Venus Pluto conjunction. Particularly, just this is something to be sensitive to for intimate relationships if there are unhealthy dynamics at play. Like, just take care of yourself, lean on people who love you, like who see you, who love you. Just like be mindful about behavior that it can be too easy to excuse around that time. And then date night, December 19th. Venus Jupiter trine in air signs, so it's vibrant and it's like not like a let's go cry our feelings out like lesbians who are U-hauling. It's like let's go to a Broadway show, let's go have like let's go out on the town, let's go in a COVID conscious way. Still masking. Like let's go have like a really vibrant social little dinner with our friends. Like it feels very like beautiful for connection, intimacy, especially of the intellectual and interest driven variety. So
Mhm. Great segue. Okay. Because for this, I pulled the Queen of Swords. So, speaking of intellectual stimulation, there you go. The real thing that came through loudest was that discernment is going to be the name of the game when it comes to love. So, yeah, maybe don't rush to the altar if you just started dating and hadn't made that decision in a non-urgent state. I do think that love, we tend to think of love as like a water thing, like being really associated with the heart and with the emotions. But the mind is just as involved in relationships and in love. And thinking about how your mind and your sense of logic and pragmatism is involved in your relationship oriented decisions is going to be important this month. Think about what feels clear and what feels cloudy, or what's going to require some additional interrogation, as well as where is honesty needed? Like, where have you perhaps been lying to yourself or not fully sharing something with your partner that just needs to be out in the open? The TLDR that I wrote down is don't be afraid to speak your truth, but sleep on it first and make sure you mean it. Both of you mentioned like practicality and mindfulness, so the cards really just do echo that with the Queen of Swords, who is like the girl when it comes to that, and I mean that in the most gender neutral way. Use your head. Just use your head.
this is
Doesn't
a
mean you
month.
can't do things, but use your head. Yeah.
This is a month for being a bad bitch, not a sad bitch.
Yes.
Like
Incredible. Okay. Well,
I'm here with the cheesy jokes.
We love to see it.
well, for all the bad bitches out there who
I'm a
are
sad bitch.
dealing,
I'm so sorry.
no, it's good, who are dealing with living in a body for December. Okay, health. What really came through again, too, is the heart and the hands. So December would be a great month for really tender treatment of the body. It's also the end of a really tough year. There's a lot going on. Everybody's nervous systems are probably in full tilt overdrive. So we're being really tender with our bodies in December, making sure that they are okay, because we really only have one home, and that is it within the confines of our lovely skin. So this could mean massage, this could mean acupuncture, taking baths, doing spa days, resting, taking naps, anything that really feels relaxing and restorative to you, especially if you are traveling for the holidays or if you're going to be hosting, taking the moments that you can to really rest and recover so that you can do all the things that you want to do this month. And especially for those who are doubling their energy, right, in 2 or 3 personal months, really just sink into the magic of mundane pleasures and be really careful about overdoing it. Be aware of your limitations and honor those limitations. this is not the month to be going for new PRs. Like, even if you think you can, it's like, we're not taking the hot yoga class if we know that we need to be in a beginner's class, in an air conditioned room. Like, this has very big, like, I went for it and then passed out energy. So we're just
Bluff.
being really mindful of our limitations and like treating ourselves well this month.
Oh my God. I went for it and I passed out is the story of my life with athletics, B. So thank you
Mine
for
too.
that.
Oh,
Very
that is
helpful.
tragic.
So the days that I'd like us to be just extra mindful of, December 14th, the moon is with Jupiter in an air sign, square Saturn in a water sign. To be fair, we have been having that aspect every month. Anytime the moon is in Gemini, like since Jupiter went into Gemini earlier this year. But I do not love, especially in winter months, especially with all the travel and like seeing new people and holiday parties and like we're just all the things. I do not love this timing for airborne illness transmission. Could be COVID, could be something else. Like get your flu shot, get all, get all the stuff. Masking is a good idea every day and every month, of course. But if you don't usually mask, I would really recommend it mid-December, like especially if you're traveling, but also just kind of in everyday life. I would also definitely avoid things like concerts or sporting events if you're trying to be health conscious, or if you have like COVID conscious loved ones or immunocompromised loved ones who you want to keep safe. And also a casual reminder that KN95s are much more effective than surgical masks. And then the other day, just kind of our monthly moon Mars avoid, like go slow, try to avoid accidents day is December 17th and 18th. The reason I do extra want to highlight this is that Mars will be retrograde in a fire sign for most of December. And that is just a real, like, we're extra prone to overheating, extra prone to overexertion. Like B said, really big, I went for it and I passed out vibes. And we don't want that. We don't want that for any of you or for us. So slow down, wear a mask, be chill.
Well, unsurprisingly, the tarot backs all of this up. Speaking of, I went for it and passed out / airborne illnesses. I pulled the 9 of Swords for health for December.
So loud.
So very loud, which is just to say, health is going to feel tender this month. It just seems like it's going to. I usually try to frame it as like, this might be, but it really just seems like health is going to feel really tender this month. So tenderness might also be the best treatment for that tenderness, right? I think the 9 of Swords is so much about anxiety and nightmares and terror. And so I think too that there could be this feeling of panic around symptoms or a sense of urgency, like concern around every mole or every minor cough or whatever. And so be cautious. Yes, like wear a mask, pneumonia, bird flu. There's all kinds of stuff beyond COVID. Like we're in the middle of November right now. No idea what we're going to be looking at when this comes out, but we're seeing all kinds of things around airborne stuff specifically. So use caution, wear a mask, don't sign up for the hot yoga class. But also like try not to get lost in panic. The 9 of Swords tends to be you think something is kind of in your head or you think something is worse than it is. So do be thoughtful, be critical of your information, but be open to caution. And if you're feeling like something isn't going to be a good or safe or healthy choice for you, think critically about whether or not you actually want to go through with it. Do you need to go to that big party full of people you don't like? Or could you actually just stay home and keep everybody a little bit safer, right? It is okay to protect your health this month and to be extra gentle and tender with yourself, especially if things are feeling really. Ugh.
Yeah,
what
I mean, what a great way to wrap this up.
I
If
know.
you're feeling,
Makes desperate gesture on
Existential mood. Existential, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
Also, though, that did make me think, like, it's so funny, Meg, that you mentioned moles because, like, as Meg knows, because
sorry.
Meg's my wife, basically, almost, is that I had my first dermatology, like, skin screen this week for the first time in, like, more than 10 years. It took, like, 5 minutes. It was so easy. I'd been freaking out about all these different moles, and she was like, yeah, it's fine. And, like, it just, those little appointments that they take so much activation energy to work up to. So, especially if you're neurodivergent, like so much activation energy to schedule, to do all the things, but then you do them and then you get to tick check it off your list for a year. And so, and I will say the feeling of like being so proud of myself, like, man, that rent free, like in my head, like, I'm like, I went to a dermatology appointment. Like, you know,
It's
it's
so
just,
grown up. It's so responsible.
it's so adult. It's so responsible.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm turning 37 this month. It's like, I'm totally not an adult.
But you're ready. You're ready. You're moving in
You're
that
right.
direction. No, and that I
Yeah.
think that's really the vibe of the month is like if you've been avoiding something, it might come to call this month. You know,
Mhm.
that's some of that like beautiful and tricky energy too. But hopefully once you face it head on and deal with it or do what needs to be done, then you will be left with this really big feeling of relief. And with everything, you know, subject to change, not just because of US politics, but just in terms of moving into a collective 9 year where things are going to change and things are ending and we're looking at big groups, you know, global family. What does this mean? I do think December, the more that you can tick off your own list, the better prepped you will be to move into 2025.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Okay.
us.
Well,
This sucks, but I love us.
Yeah.
I know, which honestly might be the vibe for a while. This sucks, but I love us. Is really the
Yeah.
vibe.
I mean, yeah, truly. It's like, this sucks, but we're not alone. Like, you know, Teresa Reed always says, be prepared, not scared. And that does feel like the vibe. Like, don't let the fear win. Like, don't
Mhm.
Yeah.
comply in advance. Like, make your plans, talk to your people, and like, you know, take a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And try and enjoy the holidays, whatever that means to you, even if it's just staying in with a warm cup of something that you like to drink and watching a
Mhm.
movie or reading a good book. You know, there are so many ways to really
Yeah.
root into like the cozy magic of December. Winter is coming. Buckle up,
Mhm.
bitches.
Yeah. Oh, and if your team like wreck Christmas, like Godspeed, and the Queen of Swords is on your side. I meant to say that.
Incredible.
You got
All
this. I'm
right.
rooting for you.
Well, that is what we have for you this year, question mark.
Oh,
Um,
well,
I
Yeah.
know we will be coming at you
year.
with some individual or team episodes this month. We're still
Mhm.
figuring that out. So please keep in touch with us. You can find us online at callyourcoven.com. We are still on Instagram, question mark at callyourcoven. Of course, you can stream this on the podcast platform of your choice and on YouTube. Please leave us a rating and review if you like the show and want to support. And if you want to throw us additional support this holiday season, we do have a Patreon. We have a supportive $5 tier right now. If you sign up for free, you'll just get all of our newsletter type episode updates. And then please, please, please share with a witchy bestie or a friend or your own coven. Obviously, the coven is the three of us, but it also means you and all of your people. So just a huge thank you at the end of the year for embracing our show this year and for all of the lovely support. I know I can't speak for all of us, but I'm thrilled.
You can speak for us.
You can speak for us. It's been a joy. It is a joy. It gets to keep being a joy.
Yeah, this has been such a grounding, like lovely thing. And it's so nice to be able to look at the month ahead with y'all and like pull cards and figure out our shit and connect with everyone listening. Like, what a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, happy holidays, everyone. Have a great
Happy
rest of your
holidays.
year,
Mhm.
and we will see you in 2025.
See you next year.
See you next year.